a sanitary manufacturer based in Kenya, but with markets across East Africa. So when COVID started, it started from China and then in Europe, we picked that shortly it will hit the East African region. We did research and we found that one of the biggest products that comes with COVID consumption is the hand wash or sanitizers. So immediately, within a very short span of, let's say, weeks, we moved into a bigger warehouse. There are some machines that we had imported, but they were lying idle. Put them up to speed, improved our production, and started to produce sanitizers. Typically in this business, we would make like Kenya shillings 8 million a month. But because of that one signal detection move, we were able to make 50 million in 1 month. So that was like 6 or 7 times what we ordinarily make. So how do we then remain relevant during these situations? Basically to signal detect, to be clear of what is happening, and that way be able to mitigate and anticipate what is happening. The reverse or the opposite is that if we don't do that, then most cases we'll find ourselves a closing business. There's a very renowned company in Kenya that I will not mention the name to protect the owners, that was the leading in manufacture, in printing of lifestyle magazines in Nairobi. The consumptions were huge. It was around a 200 million Kenya shillings business. But when we came to the advent of COVID, they were slow to pick that COVID was going to wipe out consumption of hard copy based newspaper reading. So they were pretty slow to read that. By the time COVID was done, from a 200 million annual business, they returned 40,000 for the whole year. So essentially the business was closed. So the need therefore for signal detection and clear leadership, but also being trustworthy, being trustable in the way we communicate, especially during turbulence, that we need to be clear. What are we communicating? Communicate it with a lot of trust, with a lot of love, with a lot of empathy, but still being clear at what we are communicating, but then still remaining optimistic. My third takeaway will be business remodeling, or what I will call risk-based approach to business. As we all know, especially in East Africa, we now have a number of leading businesses that have shut down. And I think that story is told in many business boardrooms. Some of the most struggling businesses now in East Africa will be mainstream media. Some of the companies that were very big on advertising revenue, like NMG, that's the Nation Media Group, the Standard Group, that because of the turbulence that we've gone through, that has changed, that not many people are now reading hard copy newspapers or information. So quick thinking in those boardrooms have seen us now subscribe to newspapers online, pay and then read. So for me, I think one of the critical things that will happen in East Africa is that we have to relook at exactly what value proposition are we selling? Is it sustainable? Is it going to be wiped out by technology in the short term? Because as we all know, technology is wiping out most of the things that ordinarily were good businesses. For us at Jeff Hamilton, our flagship product have been security guards. So basically, you have a premise, we deploy a human being there, call them a guard, and then they protect your premise. But that is changing because a number of people are not keen on having, especially like around during COVID period, there was social distancing. So you are not open to a stranger coming to your home. So what is happening is that then people are moving to technology. So at Jeff Hamilton, what we are doing is investing in the future, which in our type of business is what you call alarm response, where we are able to support you using technology. In the interim, that type of business does not make money. But we must be clear as business leaders that sometimes we are forced to invest in businesses that don't make money now, but then they will make money in the future. So yes, we still benefit from that which we are providing now, even if we know that it doesn't have a future, but then use that money to invest in what will bring or will be in consumption in future. And I think I can give a number of examples there, like brick and mortar retail stores within our region, which now are migrating their businesses into delivery. So delivery business has become big, and that has given rise to organizations like Kiosk Digital, Sendi, Jumia, Wasoko, which was ranked one of the fastest growing businesses in Africa last year. So it means that yes, the old businesses in retail might still remain, but then the market share that they command will continue to shrink. And that speaks to our own individual businesses. What business are we in? Do we think that from risk analysis, this business will be existent in the next 5 or 6 years? If no, then nothing stops us to invent or to start working on that business for the future as we wind out what we currently are in. Then lastly, my last takeout will be that which kills our businesses in East Africa, which is lack of reserves, which I mentioned, and I called it globalization. The challenge, especially during turbulence, is that sometimes we are not able to sustain, especially the human resource that we have, because of lack of reserves. So as business leaders, I think one of the major things that we'll have to focus on is building reserves, however small, but be faithful to it, so that that can then see us during difficult periods. Bill Gates said that yes, COVID was a major problem, but sure as the sun sets and rises in the morning, there will be another COVID. This time maybe much stronger, much riskier, and much grand. But organizations that will remain afloat are those that are deliberate in keeping reserves to see them through the difficult moment and even redesign the models of those businesses. In conclusion, I have a friend of mine who is a pilot who has flown Kenya Airways for all his life, and he's been one of the very senior pilots at Kenya Airways. So all he knew is flying. For 2 years, he was not able to fly. Not even his CEO was able to assure him of when he will be able to fly. And that is the type of turbulence I think we are dealing with. So even in our boardrooms and in our strategy, we must prepare to ensure that then we are averse and ready for those very difficult periods. Asante sana. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, Major. Thank you so much for those very insightful tidbits. With that, now I would like to open up the floor for some Q&A. So participants, you can either unmute yourselves and ask your question, or you can also send it directly through the chat mechanism and I can read it out to you, read it out for you. So karibuni sana. I see we're awfully quiet this evening. I know it's been a long week for everyone. Let's see who we have on in here with us. Any questions? I'm certain someone must have one.
Maggie, maybe if I can start an icebreaker.
Okay, great.
I hope you can hear me well. My internet has not been so great this evening.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, Santina.
Thank you, Maggie. Major, thank you so much for being with us this evening. Great insights that you've shared with all of us. I'm technically not part of the CAP 2, but part of CEO Roundtable. So it's always a learning. And I think you've touched on COVID-19, which is quite interesting. But do you think as we've done enough within our businesses to really learn from the pandemic? You've given us a lot of insights in terms of those businesses that were able to quickly pivot during the pandemic and how they come out on the winning end, and those who were slow to come to to the table. What I'm seeing is that even now, as we're looking at the Ukraine war, the Ukraine-Russia conflict and how it's affecting all businesses, we seem to also still be scrambling and almost not having built in this resilience that perhaps we should have done already within our businesses. Maybe if you could share more along those lines. And then my second question would be, you mentioned about pivoting and producing hand sanitizers, which was something that really benefited your organization. Now that we're going back to business as normal, how have you had to repivot now? Because obviously the demands must have shifted significantly downward. How have you managed that sort of going back to business as usual mode? Thank you, Major.
Maggie, I was waiting whether you want me to wait for another question or you want me to respond to that.
Oh, no, sorry. Yes, please proceed with responding to this question, and then we'll continue to gather a few more as we go along.
It was Santina Benson. Thanks for the question. I think you raised two questions. I think for me, first, there are few, especially with the reference to Ukraine, there are a few things that we are able to do as business leaders, but also there are a few things that we expect our leaders, especially at a political level, to do. So you've seen like the Ukraine problem has brought in a lot of supply chain issues because of travel routes across the world. And also even recently, I think Shanghai had a few challenges and we had fundamental problems in Africa. And a lot of our currencies has been coming down, tumbling based on the high cost of fuel, based on the challenges in Ukraine. So I think at the big picture level, there are a few things that our leaders, especially African presidents, will have to do. One of them is to create a strong currency for Africa. I think one of the biggest challenges that is told in Africa is that Jeff Hamilton, we operate in 5 countries and we use 5 different currencies. So that becomes extremely difficult. And sometimes you'll find that I'm not able to pay goods in Tanzania and Kenya shillings. I have to change it to the dollar for me to buy a good in Tanzania, or a simple thing from Uganda. I have to change it to the dollar to buy. So I think also it's a lot of lack of leadership at our political level, because then nothing stops us, for example, in East Africa, just to have a single currency. I import certain goods from Uganda and I have to use the Kenya shillings to buy dollars to pay the Ugandan business. The CEO is my friend. We know each other. I have Ugandan employees, he has Kenyan employees. So I think the first issue that we'll have to deal with is political, where we try and create maybe 4 currencies, maybe one for SADC, one for maybe COMESA and East Africa, one for ECOWAS, and maybe the other one for the northern, the Arabian countries in the African North. Then that way we are able to be strong even during turbulence. And that is what Russia is trying to do with the ruble. So Russia has basically agreed with China, the yuan, so that they're able, China can pay for goods in Russia through the yuan, and Russia can pay for goods from Russia through the ruble. So that reduces pressure on their individual currencies. So that will be the first thing that we need to deal with. Then the second thing that we need to deal with at the political level is the matter of manufacturing sufficiency, that we still spend a lot of our dollars that are difficult to get across to import still stupid things like toothpicks from China. So I think also there might be need for Africa, especially at the political level, or us as entrepreneurs, to invest in the small things that eat up our foreign reserves. And if you look at what Aliko Dangote is doing in Nigeria in building one of the largest refineries, it will save Nigeria a lot of foreign reserves. And that way, it will prop up the strength of the Naira. So yes, so at the global, at the big picture level, bad leadership, especially at the African Union, also a lot of selfishness among our small countries. We have countries in Africa that have a population of 2 million like Namibia, They have their own currency. So we have small, what you could easily call chiefdoms. But then we want to insist on our own currency. So I think that will be the first problem. Then the next issue, have we learned from COVID? I think the answer will be there might never be enough learnings. But yes, I think for the people within my sphere that I interact with, there's been a lot of learnings. There's been a lot of learnings. One of the things, just to confirm that there's been a lot of learnings in Nairobi, is that a number of office blocks are now empty. And there was never enough office space in Nairobi. But now there's a glut of office space because the bulk of businesses are now working from home. So we've started to realize that maybe we don't even need an office space. So there's some form of learning. And also, if you look at business travel statistics from all the leading airlines, it's now down because we are able to do most of our things online. And also, if you talk to a number of people, especially in financial institutions, SMEs are now saving more. They are saving more for a difficult period. So yes, I think there's been some learning. As to whether there's still room for learning, yes, there will never be enough learning. Then you asked about our manufacturing concern, how that happened. It's the typical story. After COVID, the demand went down. So we dipped fundamentally. So we had a lot of idle capacity that we had invested in. But then we ventured into contract manufacturing. So you have all these leading people who manufacture products like Dettol, Harpic, who are not very keen on opening up their own manufacturing plants, but they engage contract manufacturers. So that reduces their costs across East Africa. So we got into that, and based on the capacity we had built, that has spruced up our revenues again. But then, just like what I said, it is related to relooking at our business model and the value chain. So now we are asking ourselves, we've been making brands that are competing with all the multinational in the retail stores. So the question is, do we even really need to do that? Or we could just revert to contract manufacturing. It's less hectic. You have zero marketing costs, and just focus on what you're good at. No distribution, and probably make better margins. I hope I've answered you, Santina.
Yes, Major, thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Major. We have questions from Eli Bariki and Depend. Eli Bariki, I'll unmute you first. I think I saw your request, and then Depend, you can come right after. Welcome, Eli Bariki.
Good afternoon, Maggie. Major thanks for joining us this evening, and have very insightful about your business. My question is on the last comment you made when you are giving us some insight about your business, that a company now have to make some significant reserves so that they can be able to meet the challenge which unforeseen. So have you maybe come with a formula or whatever, that how much percentage maybe against the income or against the total revenue should be saved for the company to be more stable in terms of unforeseen? That was my simple question. Thank you.
Thank you, Eli Bariki. Welcome.
Maggie, we can take Deepan.
Okay, great. Welcome, Deepan. I'm just unmuting you.
Hi, good evening, Maggie. Good evening, Major. Thank you for lovely insights on this very sensitive topic that we are all into. So human capital is where, without that, the company, to run the company is the most difficult way. And you need to sustain with their insights so that your human capital doesn't leave you. So taking into consideration 2020 was a COVID year, and taking into consideration, let's say, increase in salaries of your employees, we couldn't do that in 2020. 2021, we started opening up a bit, but couldn't do much. Thinking 2022, it started off well, but now we are into a different turbulence where the pricing of the supply chain, fuel pricing going up, all the costs are going to the levels that are not below waters of our heads, so we cannot sustain increasing their salaries. How do we manage or keep that momentum up with the employees, that they shouldn't lose their morale, and of course they understand that there is a challenge in the whole world market, but they have to live. The employees also cost of living going up. What do they do? How do management do the reconciliation, or how do they take it up so that they don't leave us? Of course, if they leave us, the other companies or wherever they go is the same crisis. But how to motivate them to keep them in the company in proper efficiency levels? Thank you.
Thank you, Dipen.
Maggie, I can go?
Yes, you can go, please.
So thank you very much. I'll start with Eli Bariki. So Eli Bariki, thank you for your question. I think that is something that I don't want to prescribe a percentage, but I'm happy that my friend Quinta is on this call. I was having this conversation with her recently, and she told me that, you know, we are a startup, and Quinta is in the business of water. And she was like, we are barely meeting even our needs. We are doing very badly. So you can't just come and tell me that we need to create reserves. My answer is that we must create reserves from day one. And we need to start with that which is not fundamentally affect our business. So for example, I'll give it, assuming you make 1 million a month, when you look at your income statement, maybe you are you return a margin of 100,000. So you're returning a margin of 10%. So the question is, out of this 10%, you are still supposed to pay corporate tax of 30%. So that will leave you with 70K. So what is small enough, but still fundamental enough not to have any impact on the business? For me, I will probably look at maybe 40%, 30%. Then as the business grows, 30,000 of the remaining 70%. But the bottom line for me is treat your business as a supplier. So treat your business as a supplier. So every month when you are paying suppliers, all those suppliers that call you, and suppliers in this sense will include wage. So where you are treating your staff as suppliers, then also have the name of your business as one of those suppliers. I'm yet to meet a business that says it is easy to pay suppliers, but somehow we normally pay. And even wage for businesses like mine, where wage is 70%, it is never easy to pay wage, but for a strange reason, we still pay. If it is in Tanzania, we still get money to pay TRA, to pay taxes. If it's in Rwanda, we pay RRA. If it's in Uganda, we pay Uganda Revenue Authority. And so in Kenya and KRA. But it is never easy to pay those taxes, but we still pay. So in the same breath, treat the reserves that you're building as one of the taxes. It is the only thing that you will finally have when you lose the business. If COVID was to bring you down, the only thing that you truly own are the reserves. So once you consider that, then just save. We started this practice during COVID. I went to visit a few of my friends that we had studied with an owner manager program at Strathmore, and I visited 5 of them. I was very worried about our ability to pay staff if COVID went on for another 2 months. So I visited this particular one that I like to quote called Mojo Productions, run by a friend of mine called Josie Camuño. And she told me, Major, by the way, for the record, I'm able to pay employees for the next 3 or 4 years if we completely are not working. But if we continue working and the revenues deep and we reduce their wages, we can pay them for an foreseeable future. And that completely woke me up. So at Jeff Hamilton, we've also started a practice where in our business plan, the guideline is that we save 1.5% of turnover. So that is the Jeff Hamilton story. But it's up to you to be clear on how much you want to save. So I hold the GM finance accountable and say, in January, you had to save 1.5%, you saved 1%. So you owe Jeff Hamilton 0.5%. So Jeff Hamilton, in that sense, becomes a supplier. and we are obligated to put it on the account payables, and we are able to pay it. So that would be my advice. But if you take anywhere away from me tonight, it will be that we must create reserves, whether it hurts us, whether it kills us. Then the Dipen Patel talked about Elibariki. I hope I answered you before I go to Dipen.
Yes. Yeah. Very good
Thanks.
advice. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Elibariki. Most welcome. So Dipen Patel, you've asked, I think, something that is very close to my heart. As you must have heard from our, sorry, I think I got muted. As you've heard from my introduction, we are a human, basically a human resource organization, because we do staff outsourcing. So for us, staff is our product. It is what we produce. And therefore, how we retain them is most critical in our strategy. And that if we don't manage that well, then we have no business. And I hear you in terms of what you are saying during the difficult period of COVID. How then do you even manage this staff, considering that our earnings are coming down? I think that is the typical I would say that is the traditional way to look at it. We are looking at staff motivation from a compensation point of view. So we are saying that staff will be highly motivated if we pay them well, and they'll be less motivated if we pay them badly, which is not the correct position. Actually, that is not the correct position, because if we did that, then the SMEs will never have a place at the marketplace, because we SMEs are not able to pay as well as the big corporates pay, as Safaricom pays, as MTN pays, as Vodacom pays. There's no day we are going to pay better than them. So if we take that approach, then it means we lose before we start. But I don't want us to lose before we start, because there's something we can do that the big organizations cannot do. So what have we done at Jeff Hamilton to ensure that despite the difficult period, our staff have remained highly motivated? A few examples. For the very critical staff, all staff are critical, but there are those ones that are more critical, like the managing directors for different markets, the GMs HR, the GMs finances, those that hold the business very critically. We are alive to the fact that Safaricom will want to hire them, or EEBL will want to hire them. So we've allowed issuing with shares based on a performance metric. So a number of our key staff now own shareholdings in the individual market they operate in that is based on a performance management plan. And that has completely addressed the issue of retention and the issue of motivation, because we've effectively moved our staff from factory workers to factory owners. That for me has been one of the most effective strategies. Then the other strategy has been to reduce spend on the things that are good to have. So you see, it is very hard for me to reduce how much I pay you, but I can negotiate and say, look, you are on a medical cover. I'm proposing that you contribute 30% and the business pays 70%. So that way the staff doesn't feel bad, because then you can see the effort you are doing. So currently our staff team meets 25% of the medical cover and we meet 75%. They're able to pay it over a 6-month period. It's deducted from salary. Now that has done two things. Some of the staff members that we are giving a medical cover told us, I don't outrightly need the cover because my husband has a better cover, or my wife has a better cover. So a number of people dropped from the medical cover based on the fact that they actually have a better medical cover. So that reduced our spend on medical cover. Then on laptops, which also is a major spend for businesses, we introduced a laptop ownership scheme. So yes, we entered with a partner. So they issue with the laptop, we deduct the money and pay the provider. The staff are happier because they own the laptop. So when they exit the business, they go with the laptop. But we are also happier because then we are not spending a lot of money on our balance sheet. So it leaves money for us to keep a competitive salary. Then lastly, we also had staff that are issued with company vehicles. So we entered into a purchase scheme with them. We told them, we'll give you this car at 70% of value. We'll deduct the money slowly, but the car is yours. Then we give you a fuel card. So that one thing that has done is that now we don't even have breakages. Cars don't break down. We used to spend a lot of money maintaining cars. Cars don't break down. And now we are not buying many cars because people keep the cars that we give them for a longer time. So that again has reduced our pressure on the balance sheet. And even the laptops no longer break down. So those small things have seen us redeem money to focus on the very critical thing. Then by the virtue that we're a smaller business, we've also introduced things like family visits. So we have groups of people, we organize, then we say now, next week we are going to Moshi to visit our head of finance, to visit the father, take him gifts, go just spend time with them. So that has created a tighter bond and basically made a family out of the business. So our retention has been greatest during COVID. So there are many other things we can do, but we just need to think outside the box. The bottom line, the salary is important, but it is not the most important thing around staff motivation.
Thank you, Major. That was a great insight. Thanks.
Most welcome, Deepan.
Thank you to all our individuals that raised questions, and thank you to Major. Is there anyone else who has a question for Major? Okay, if there's no one else with any burning questions for him, I think then in that case, we will bring our session to a close. If that's fine with everyone. Okay, so yes, so Major, again, asante sana for your valuable insights that you've shared with us. I think even aligned to the crisis management fundamentals that you shared with us earlier on in your talk. I think what's really coming out and what we're really going to take away with us this evening is that although in times of turbulence, we would be inspired to respond aggressively and make decisions and make quite cutthroat decisions as leaders. What I'm really picking up is that, in fact, what's really needed is that we inspire ourselves to take on a bit more subdued approaches in terms of how we deploy some tactful decisions that would also carry on heavy undertones that promote trust, empathy, and understanding within the wider stakeholder group within our relevant organizations. So yes, a lot of food for thought for us as we close off on our evenings today, but also as we also continue our leadership journeys. So with that, yes, I would like to thank you on behalf of the CEO Roundtable, on behalf of the CAP Cohort 2 participants, and also our colleagues from Strathmore as well. I'd also like to say thank you to the Jeff Hamilton team that is online with us here today. It was a pleasure to have you on board, and yes, asante sana. I don't know, Jeff, if there's any imparting words that you'd like to leave us with. Otherwise, yes, we can close off.
Yes, Maggie, I think what I would want to say is that Africa is an amazing place. As you travel in different cities in Africa, I'm currently in Lusaka. A lot of businesses, especially the non-white businesses, are investing a lot in Africa. For me, I see a rising Africa across all our cities. If you travel in Dar es Salaam, in Kampala, in Kigali, in Kinshasa, a lot of things are happening around infrastructure and that. So the future is clearly African. And I believe that we have the power to change the narrative that is Africa and make it one of the most powerful places in the world. And I know we have the power to do that. So I think our future is too important to leave it to politicians. We as business leaders, we have what it takes to make a difference. And it could be a small difference, but it could be the only difference that we need. Asante sana.
Asante sana, Major. Asante sana. Thank you. Thank you for your time. And I would like to wish everyone on the call with us a good evening, wherever you may be dialing in from. Thank you. And bye-bye. And yes, I see there's some comments for us to share Major's comments, Major's contacts. We will do that. And so if you do feel like you want to reach out to him, please do feel free. And I hope, Major, you'll allow us to do that.
I'm actually sharing it on the chat box.
Oh, fantastic. Great. So we can get it off of you right now. Brilliant.
Yes, I've shared.
There you go. Yes, I see it there. So I will also copy this in case anyone who's already dropped off misses it. I will also circulate to the entire group. Thank you. Asante sana. Good evening to everyone. Bye-bye.